Welcome, Arizona Cardinals fans, to the Revenge of the Birds wrap-up show. I'm your host, Seth Cox. With me tonight, my co-host and lead writer for RevengeOfTheBirds.com, Tyler Nickel. And Tyler, I don't want to say it's over, but man, this season has been a disappointment for the Arizona Cardinals. And no better way to head into the bye than to be disappointed. Once again, the Arizona Cardinals lose to the now 2-6 Carolina Panthers 30-20. They sit at 3-4-1 on the season. I just tweeted out a second ago, I didn't know if they'd lose 4 games all year. And they've lost 4 of their first 8. And, fortunate to not have lost 5. Probably unfortunate to not have won 4. But what do we make of this team before we even get into today's game?
I don't really know what to make of it. It seems like when one position group finally starts to play a little better, another one completely fails. And today that was the offensive line against the Carolina Panthers, giving up 8 sacks. I mean, that's inexcusable. I don't care that you don't have Evan Mathis. I don't care that Jared Valdir left late in the game and Wetzel came in and played left tackle. None of that should have any bearing on giving up 8 sacks to what has been a mediocre defense this entire season.
And to be fair, and we'll talk about this, but you hit on it. The Arizona Cardinals passing attack statistically was dominant. Looked like they got on track today. But when you give up 8 sacks and you are playing from behind, so you're just throwing the ball a ton, you look bad. But then you add to the fact this: David Johnson carried the ball 10 times for 24 yards. Right. This offensive line didn't just get beat up in pass protection. They were embarrassed in the run game. And that's something right. This is the first game of the season that you can look at it and say that the Arizona Cardinals just got out physicaled by another football team. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Yeah, I would agree completely. And I don't know if you and I agree on this or not, but I thought under the circumstances, Carson Palmer actually played really well.
Statistically, he was good. 363 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think the issue was this. He had the one backbreaker. And when your defense is finally getting stops in the second half, and then they finally make that big play that allows you to, all you need is a field goal at that point. You just have to get a field goal that gets you down by a touchdown, and then, you go from there. The one thing you can't do is turn the ball over, and it just seemed like he picked the worst spot to have his worst play of the day. But let's start with the beginning of the game. And, one of those things that happens way too often in the NFL, where it looks to everyone in the NFL or everyone watching the game, including Mike Pereira, including the announcers, like the Cardinals got screwed on an important, using that term loosely, call in return for a touchdown by Thomas Davis. And then they just didn't seem to recover in the first half. Was it all the missed call, or was it, a combination of the missed call and then here we go again type feel? Like, I don't know. Like, it was just such a weird circumstance to see them kind of fold up so quickly.
Yeah, I thought that really brought them out of their mojo. I mean, it was a terrible call. I don't think anybody would dispute that. They'll go back and look at that and they'll say, wow, we really screwed the pooch on that one. But and then they missed another one with Greg Olsen, which should have been challenged by Bruce Arians, but he didn't challenge it.
That was awkward. I don't have any idea why he didn't just throw it.
Yeah, and then he challenged a play later in the game that was pretty clearly, I don't know, in Carolina's favor, but he still challenged it. It was the Ted Ginn catch on the sideline. I don't know why he challenged that, but then not the one earlier with Greg Olsen. I felt like BA kind of mismanaged the game at times today.
I felt like that challenge on Ted Ginn was out of desperation.
Like, yeah, it probably was.
like he's like, I gotta like see if we can find something because we're just getting
But
blitzed
you
right
add up
now.
that fumble that Thomas Davis returned, and then you take those 7 points that Greg Olson eventually led them to, and instead you just give them three. I mean, that's an 11-point swing right there. So
But even if you take away just the Greg Olson, which BA could have controlled, even
right,
if you just take away the Greg Olson, they're at 27-20 going
right,
into the end of the game with 3 minutes left. Your defense makes a spectacular play. As good as the defense has been, one of the things they didn't do last week, and then one of the things they didn't do until 3 minutes left in the game was create a turnover. Um,
mm-hmm.
and they finally did that. Tony Jefferson made a huge, strip of the ball on Jonathan Stewart. Got the Cardinals in a position where 3 minutes, like I said, that's plenty of time for two scores with what we expected this offense to be, and it was just vintage. I don't know, maybe vintage Carson Palmer making a bad decision, bad throw. It was just the wrong time to make his worst play of the game.
Yeah. But how good has Tony Jefferson been? I mean, I think personally he's been the best defender on the Cardinals for this entire season overall.
Yeah, and I think it's between he and Chandler Jones, based on
Mm-hmm.
what we've seen so far. Patrick Peterson tends to give up like one play a week, not necessarily like a big play, but like
Yeah.
one little slip up a week. And we saw that this week with Kelvin Benjamin's long catch and run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that was the play Tyrann Mathieu got hurt on. Was that the play, or was it after that?
It might have been a little after that. I don't
Okay.
recall exactly.
But Tyrann Mathieu left the game with a shoulder injury. Jared Valdir left the game with an arm injury. Are they calling it just
Mm-hmm. It
arm?
was an arm injury. Yeah.
Fitzgerald is clearly hurting with his foot. Um, and you have to figure Carson Palmer is going to be hurting. But I guess the saving grace is they're heading into a bye week, and they're only 1.5 games out because Seattle somehow lost to New Orleans today.
Right. I don't know. It was just an ugly game. It's one that luckily doesn't put them any more behind the eight ball with the Seahawks because Seahawks lost. But I mean, it's getting harder and harder to envision them possibly winning the division.
It's one of those things now. Like the question becomes: is this a team that's going to be able to win enough games, find enough wins in their schedule to make the playoffs? And you know, even I was guilty of it today. Like, the Seahawks lost, so they kept pace. But here's the reality: you cannot continue to expect other teams to do your job,
Right.
and meaning lose football games. The Cardinals needed the Seahawks to lose a game. The Seahawks lost a game. The Cardinals couldn't take advantage. At some point, the Cardinals have to find a way to scratch out wins when other teams are losing. And through this season, they haven't been able to do that. Like Bruce Arians said, they're 1.5 games back. They'll knowing the Cardinals' luck, they'll be 2 games back coming out of the bye because Seattle's going to pick up another half game and win. So you figure 2 games with 8 games to go, that's plenty of time. But now you can only really control your own destiny with one of those games. So, you're hoping that Seattle doesn't wake up and finally click offensively because we know their defense is great. Their defense is going to continue to be great, but if their offense figures out a way to wake up, they're dangerous. Now you can say the same thing for the Cardinals.
Right.
And I think that's what we fans are waiting for. So,
Yeah. I mean, let's look at some bright sides, though. I thought J.J. Nelson had his breakout game. He was fantastic. I mean, the guy was almost uncoverable, but the problem was they didn't ever have any time to get him the ball. And then,
I think you can highlight David Johnson in the passing game as well.
yeah, I thought, yeah, he was really good. Even in the running game, I thought if he would have gotten a little more room, a little more help from the offensive line, he played really well overall. And then, yeah, like I said, Tony Jefferson again came up with a clutch strip fumble, and he made it a game there at the end. But
Yeah, and I think Fitz had another nice game. He had the drop, which is just so uncharacteristic of him. But I mean, we hold him to such a weirdly high standard over everybody else. But I think he finished with nearly 100 yards on like 8 catches today on a hobbled foot. He, you know, he laid two or three really key blocks on plays that continued to extend drives and continue to give the Cardinals a chance to win. You mentioned that I thought Carson Palmer, this might have been his best game of the season. That Tampa game was probably up there, but I think under the circumstances, like you said, against with an offensive line that just gave him zero to work with, I thought he did a nice job. Um, yeah, I mean, there were some positives. I didn't think the defense found its footing soon enough, and you can blame some of that on the offense, but I thought, this was a game that we needed to see the defense stand up and hold their own again. And for whatever reason, they couldn't do it this week.
Yeah, but I mean, I got nothing to add to that. It was just kind of up and down all game.
Yeah, and it's definitely unfortunate that the defense, like you said, the offensive line struggled. The defense, you don't want to say came back to earth. They only gave up 23 points, and but they didn't do what we had been seeing the last 3 games, and so I think that was a little bit unexpected to see them against a Carolina team that just hasn't been very good, like, quite frankly. And I did like the blogger crossover with Cat Scratch Reader and the SB Nation blog, and they were, I mean, if you read the comments on the blog, it's like, oh, Panthers are going to lose 45-17. They're awful. Like, they're hoping to get their GM fired, so they're kind of hoping that this goes bad. And then you see the Cardinals just come out and lay an egg, and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and like I said, we can blame it on refs. We can blame it on, a tough Seattle game last week that went into overtime while Carolina had a bye, and then coming across the country and playing a 10 a.m. game. There's a lot of things we can blame it on, but fact of the matter is they got behind the 8 ball too early, and they were just unable to dig themselves out. It was pretty they looked like the Sun Devils, if we're being honest.
Right, and so nothing next week, bye week, which is really needed because I think they need to regroup and refocus. All 8 of their games left are winnable. I mean, I don't think they're going to go 11-4-1, but if they can find a way to get to 9-6-1, maybe they give themselves a chance at the playoffs. That means they got to go. What is that? 6-2 the rest of the way.
Yeah,
that's going to be tough. I mean, it really is. But I still think the talent's here, offensively and defensively. They just have to find that cohesion.
Well, they got a game right after the bye at home against the 49ers, so that's a game they could definitely get some of their mojo back with right after the bye. As long as they can remain semi-healthy, hopefully. But then they got 2 tough games in a row at Minnesota and at Atlanta. So we'll see.
And that could define the season right there.
Like, they will. I was just gonna say those would be make or break games. Those 2 are make or breakers in my opinion.
If you find a way to go 1-1, you set yourself up to finish the season with, again, Seattle being the team, the team standing in your way. If you find a way to go 2-0, same thing still. I mean, but if you come out of that, those 2 games 0-2, I just don't see a way that to expect them to roll off. Then what would that be? 5 in a row to get to? Well, that would only be 9 wins. Man, if they lose to San Francisco, I'm never doing another podcast again. So there's just that. So, all right. Well, that's it from us. Sorry for the little bit of a downer, but this game was a downer. This season thus far has been a downer, but we're going to have continued great content and coverage of the Arizona Cardinals at Revenge of the Birds. Unfortunately, we might even be getting heavier into my buddy Justin's line of work much earlier than we expected with draft stuff, but so if you have any questions on draft prospects, go ahead and get them out there now, and we'll keep at it. So thanks for listening as always, and go Cardinals.